This is Will Clanton, Precise Management, and today we are implementing a plan of how to improve your cash flow. And when we begin to talk about cash flow, this is a crucial area possible for you. There's usually two reasons why you want to increase your cash. Either one, you're just not sleeping at night. You're trying to figure out ways how you're going to actually make payroll or pay the bills or possibly even just pay yourself. And the second area is maybe you're actually looking to scale your practice. And anytime you begin to scale a practice, you're going to need cash in order to do that. So I believe there are 7 areas that you need to focus on. In these 7 areas, we look at the first one, we're going to talk about price. The second one we're going to talk about is volume, and we'll talk more about that. The third is, the cost of your services and direct cost. The fourth one is your operating expenses. Number 5 is accounts receivable. Number 6 is your inventory and your WIP, your work that you have in progress. And the last one we're going to finish off with is accounts payable and debt payments. So let's begin to look at the first one. And the first one here that we're looking at when we talk about improving your cash flow is price. How much can you increase the prices of your services? This book that was published by Wiley called The Price Advantage, goes into a scenario where if you increase 1% of your price, you will increase your operating profit between 8 to 9%. And that's really powerful. When we look at 1%, it's a small number. Most people, despise small things, but a 1% increase in your price will generate between 8 and 9% increase to your operating profit. So you want to look at your practice and say, okay, what can I do to increase my practices? Are some of my services really low? What can I actually move those up to? So we want to look at that, and just remember, if you could just do 1%, you're going to increase your operating profit by 8, 9%. And what that does, when your operating profit actually increases, that's a direct correlation, and it increases your cash flow. So the first one that we want to actually attempt to do to implement to increase our cash flow is we want to look at our price, the prices that we're actually charging. Second thing we want to look at is volume, and what does volume mean to you in your practice? When we're talking about volume here, we're talking about the number of patients that you have visiting your practice. And I want to make sure that we focus here because volume can also mean new patients that come into your practice. But we don't want to focus on new patients coming to practice. When we talk about new patients coming into the practice, that usually is a significant amount of cash outlay that you need to do to get a new patient to visit you. So when we talk about increasing the volume, we want to stick to an existing list that you have, right? Let's focus on patient recalls. How do you get patients to get back into your rooms that was on your list who just may not be coming back for one reason or another? So we want to focus on patient recalls. And then if you possibly have a list, you may have some people who just stop coming for some reason. How do we get those patients back in? Because if we're going to increase our cash flow, it's going to be a direct correlation of the volume of patients that's coming through our practice. So let's not go out and focus on, hey, how do we get a new patient? That's what most people think about when they, think about, hey, they need to actually grow the business. But if we're going to grow cash flow, we want to minimize the amount of cash outlay that we have. So let's focus on something that we know we have, a list that we can pull out at any point in time and start to do patient recalls to get those patients back into the business. Recall them, get them back into your seats, so that you can actually begin to increase your cash flow. So number 2 is your volume. We want to begin to increase the volume of patients that you have come into your practice. The next one we want to talk about is your cost of services. And when we talk about your cost of services, what we're actually talking about here is, hey, how can I reduce, my direct cost? And that's going to cause you to look at things of, what are you paying your associates? If you have associates that's in your practice, what agreements do you have in place? Can you change or modify those agreements where you can actually reduce the cost that's actually going out the door to pay your associates? Your hygienists, what are you paying your hygienists based upon what they're producing? Is there a strategy that you can actually put into place to basically drive down the cost of your hygienists? Then the next one, hey, what about your staff? What cost do you have for your staff? How are you paying them? Is there some way that you can reduce the amount of cash that's going out of the business to pay for your staff? Then your lab fees. What are you paying in lab fees? Where does that compare to the industry average? Can you switch labs? Can you actually negotiate with the labs to get better pricing? So you want to look at your lab fees. And the last one is your drugs or your supplies that you're using. These are direct costs of services that you are laying out every single month. What can you do to drive those costs down? As you begin to decrease those costs, what happens is that you're going to increase your cash flow. That's your cost of services. When we talk about direct costs, we also have operating costs or your fixed costs that's in your business. What are those fixed costs that you can also reduce, right? And maybe one of the things that you want to look at is your credit card fees. What fees are you paying to your credit card processing company? If you pick up the phone and get another call from another processor and tell them what you're paying now, most of the time, credit card processing will actually reduce their fees. It's worth looking into, right? We want to be able to reduce those credit card fees and whatever bank fees that we have. My office expenses, where am I buying office supplies from? Maybe my office is, ordering too much. Or maybe they're ordering from a place that the office expenses are higher. Can I sign up with a program that will give me some type of rebate for my office expenses? So I want to look at ways I can reduce my office expenses. Also want to look at my taxes. How do I decrease my taxes? Can I put tax-free benefits into my business that's going to be more beneficial for my employees, but it's going to help me actually save on my taxes, which is going to drive my costs down. So I want to look at my taxes. And then my insurance costs. Is it time to go out to another insurance broker or another insurance agent and say, hey, come and review my policies. Tell me what I'm spending. Am I spending too much? So I want to look at ways I can reduce my operating expenses. Then I want to look at accounts receivable, right? What can you do to collect faster from your patients or third-party payers? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I suggest that we actually build a toolkit called the Ultimate Billing and Collection Toolkit, and it is full of different strategies and different ways that you can actually speed up collections. So you can check that out. I want to talk about my inventory. Can I reduce the amount of inventory that you have on hand? Sometimes what happens is that you delegate this responsibility to one of your team members or your office manager who may possibly be ordering your inventory. And what we want to actually do here, we want to actually make sure that you don't have a huge amount of supply on hand for inventory. Or maybe you have, your sales rep who's, auto shipping inventory to your practice. You want to make sure that you're getting the right amount and you don't have stock of 3 to 6 months of inventory, sit on your shelf that you can't use because that's actually burning cash. So let's make sure that we have adequate amounts of inventory, but we don't want to have multiple months of inventory just sitting there that we're not going to use for months. And then we also want to look at our WIP, right? Our work that's in progress. Can you speed up your treatment plans? And this is important because if you can speed up the time in your treatment plans, then you can collect that money faster. So Just make sure that you are scheduling your patients, efficiently as possible. You want to be able to get them in and be done with the treatment plan. When you don't schedule right, what's happened is that you're not going to be able to collect because the patient's not going to want to pay for you for something until it's complete. So how can you actually speed up your treatment plans? And the last one that we want to talk about here is your accounts payable and debt payments. And what we're looking to do here is, how do we slow down your payment to your creditors, right? I want to be able to slow those things down. I want to possibly negotiate better terms with my vendors. Maybe you don't have terms, and maybe the way you're actually purchased and everything is that anytime you purchase, you whip out your credit card and put it on the credit card, or it's COD. We need to begin to negotiate terms with our vendors and say, okay, send the bill today, we'll pay you, within 30 days. So I want to slow down when I actually need to pay my creditors. Because if I actually do this, let's just say that, hey, I'm able to negotiate my vendors 30 days, and then I use my form of payment is to use a credit card. So that means the bill's going to be due in 30 days. In 30 days, I'm going to put it on my credit card and make the payment. And what I can do is stretch that payment for another 30 days and not pay any interest. So that's a powerful method that not only am I going to, slow down the money that's going out the door, but especially if I use points on those credit cards or get points on those credit cards, I can use that for different things to award my staff or my team members. But the main goal here is that I want to slow down the amount of money that's going out of the practice. And then lastly is, do I have equipment, or do I have payments that I'm making that I can refinance the debt on? Maybe the payment's big and I can refinance and get better terms and actually reduce the amount of my monthly payments. So this is the last one we want to talk about today, and that's the 7 points. Accounts payable and debt payments. How do I actually slow these down so I can increase the cash flow in my practice? My name is Will Clanton. I'm from Precise Management, and we are transforming the life of the business owner. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you implement this plan so that you can increase your cash flow.